So if we click, but if you notice, there's a problem because once you click, we don't have a way to get back to choose a different category. So that's one of the things we'll be adding in a bit is some navigation here to at least go back to that selection screen to choose another category. Okay, so we can get rid of that, close that out for now. So now that we have our, let's just close this action panel for a moment. Now that we have that, we're just going to go into these individual, so we'll go to food, for example, and what we want to do is provide some instruction for the user about what they can do on this screen. So we are going to say, want them to know that they can click, oops, click a word below to see and hear it in French. Okay, we'll make that, and we'll make this a little bit bigger. All right, that looks pretty good. So let's just make this, bring this down just a little bit. Okay. So some of the English food words that we want to, and actually, so this is a static text as we mentioned before. We've seen this type of text box before. But what we want to do now is we need to have a field where the English, where the French version will be displayed when the English term is clicked. So we're going to use the text box again, and instead of static text, we're going to choose dynamic text. And we want the color again to be black is fine. And then we're just going to make this about the same length as the title, just for now, like that. Actually, make the, okay, so that is the dynamic text box. And because it's dynamic, it means it's going to change based on some action by the user. In this case, when the user clicks on an English term on the stage, the French pronunciation or the French translation of that term will appear in this dynamic text box. So we need to have this, we have to give this an instance name so that ActionScript knows to serve up that French translation there. So we're going to just call this French TXT. So that's French text. It's dynamic, and that's kind of what we need to do with that. And in order for this to be a little bit more easy to read for the user, we're going to create a box. Actually, I want that to be white. Okay. So we're going to create a box, and then we're going to take this box, just make sure that's, okay, we want to make sure that the box is, whoops, actually rather this text box, we want to make sure that this text box is always in the front. And then we're just going to align that a little bit over that box. Okay, perfect. So also what we're going to do now is highlight all of this, right? We're going to copy that and paste it because we know we need the same content on the other screens before we get into customizing each of those for the different terms that we want to translate. So we're going to go to the clothing screen, whoops, sorry, the clothing screen, and we're going to paste that. And while it's all still selected, we can manipulate that. And if you want to be able to align it exactly with, so right now this is functioning. However, it's not really teaching anyone French. So in order to do that, we actually have to put the English terms on the page, create buttons out of those text fields, and then we want to attach audio clips to those buttons and French translations that will appear in the dynamic text boxes that we created on each of those layers. So I do have a little bit of code that I've created previously in order to do that. So I'm just going to copy some of that to help save us a little bit of time. So we're going to create a text box. So this one is for conversation. We're on the converse. So what we're going to do now is create the text words. So some of the terms that we'll be learning, hello, let's see, hello, start button, and the different category buttons. We're going to turn these into symbols and buttons that can be called from ActionScript. So we're going to create a symbol, convert that to symbol, and this is hello. Export for ActionScript, and we're going to make the class hello, and click OK. And the instance name is hello. So we have hello, and we're going to just, actually we could copy this whole thing if we wanted to do that, save ourselves some time, but you can choose to type it all from scratch. Either way, you just have to be careful about what it is that you're typing. So this is the hello button. So we want to change it there, and we also want to change it here because this is the button mode that's going to be applied to that button. And so for the function, what we're going to do is call this hello French because we want it to show the French version, the French translation of hello. And instead of we don't want it to play anything, right? What we want to do is call this dynamic text box and have it display a string, which is the French translation. So this is the dynamic text box is called French text. So inside this function, what we want to do is say French text equals .text equals, and then the string here, because we're saying this dynamic text box with that instance name is going to display this. So we know that the French version is bonjour. Okay. So let's try that out and see how that works. Hello, see, so it's got that button mode. You see, we don't really care too much about the fonts that are displayed in the buttons that we create on the page, but we do need to make sure that whatever shows up in this dynamic text box is the right font. So we're going to choose a different font. So Allegra, I think this is one of the ones that does have it. So we're going to do that, and we're going to say embed that. So we're going to embed this, and we're going to call it French. All these, I'm going to copy these characters in, and then we're going to say OK. Start conversation. Yes. Okay, so this is something that you might need just to play around with. If you created a bunch of text fields, or if you have dynamic text that's displaying in the way that we are here, one of the things you need to make sure of is that your font that you've chosen to use can display all the characters, and that you embed those fonts in your file.